In the previous demonstration, the demand manager completed all the required information and submitted the demand, so it's no longer in the draft state. Now Brian has the option to either reject the demand or proceed with preparing it for the screening state. Before moving forward, let's take a snapshot of the assessment values. To start completing the information to evaluate the demand, he works with relevant stakeholders and other users to fill in any missing information. The first thing is to identify the start and due dates for the demand, and then he can move to the Financials tab. Here, he enters the high-level financial data for the cost and benefit of the demand. As a reminder from our lessons, capital expense, or CAPEX, is the term used for an organization's investment costs, depreciated over an asset's lifespan. For an asset to be capitalized, it must bring long-term value to the organization as a tangible production. On the other hand, the term expenses is used for costs incurred outside of capital investments. An expense refers to immediate spending that cannot be depreciated over an extended period. This is also called operating expense, or OPEX. The development cost will fall under CAPEX, while the training and other services are categorized as OPEX. If there is a specific budget allocated for the demand, Brian can use this link to add it. However, in this case, no budget is associated with it yet. To add the expected benefits after completing the demand, we can use the benefits plan to identify the benefits by fiscal periods and include non-monetary benefits. However, since the information we have is high level, let's use the field in the form to add it. If we scroll down to the related list, Brian can add additional information, such as RID-AC records, to identify possible risks or plan the resources, roles, or groups needed to complete the demand. Let's focus now on the Stakeholders tab. The system has added by default the stakeholders from the portfolio selected in the demand, but Brian can also add additional stakeholders if needed. In the stakeholder list, for each stakeholder, the level of interest, influence, and engagement is identified, whether they are supportive, leading, or against, so Brian can better manage the demand communications. Apart from this, we can see which one will receive the assessment to evaluate some of the demand indicators and who will receive the approval request once sent for approval. The assessment score of a demand considers 5 key attributes: cost, return on investment, size, strategic alignment, and risk. The Assessment Data tab captures this data using demand metrics, designed to gauge subjective values through an assessment questionnaire or objective values through a database query run by a script. The query captures direct information about cost, size, and ROI. Size is estimated by considering the required effort, and this is measured using t-shirt sizes and manually entered in the form. Cost is calculated as the sum of capital and operational expenses. ROI is calculated as a weighted average of impact and financial return. The impact is manually entered in the form. Strategic alignment and risk are 2 assessment metrics derived from the assessment results. Strategic alignment measures the extent to which the demand aligns with the organization's strategic goals compared to other demands. Risk assesses demand risks compared to other demands. If the demand manager would not like to send assessments to the stakeholders, this checkbox should be unchecked. We are ready to move to the next state. Now that the demand is in the screening state, we can see some records in the Assessment Instances tab. As you can see, 2 assessments have been sent to each of the stakeholders with the assessment recipe value to yes. Also, the system has already created the assessment results based on a query from the demand data. Let's impersonate Callie to answer the assessment. The assessment is on her pending list. As we have already learned, an assessment is a set of question groups called metric categories. Each group has several questions with various answer types, in this case, a scale from 1 to 10. As Callie, let's complete the assessment and send the results. Now we do the same, impersonating Carla. The demand moves automatically to the qualify state when all the assessment data is received. All the assessment instances are complete and all the metrics has their value calculated. Before we move to the demand approval, remember that we took a snapshot of the assessment data. Let's bring it back. This is the data we have after all the screening process work. Now, the previous values, as you can see, are totally different. Before we move to the next step, let's quickly review the demand preferences. Here, there are 2 fields. The field Close Demand is where you can specify when to close the demand automatically if it is converted to a project. The possible values are: none. It keeps the demand in the open state after it is converted to a project. On creation of project, it closes the demand when the demand is converted to a project. On closure of project, it closes the demand when the project created from the demand is closed. The other field is the project calculation. Choices to specify the calculation to use for task dependencies for the project when the demand is converted to a project. With the demand in the qualified state, how do the demand managers or other demand approvers determine what demand they want to turn into a project? So that is when the demand workbench or the portfolio planning comes in. We will review the portfolio planning prioritization functionality in another module.